Hi friends, this is Sai Madhav. We are dealing in CA final auditing. We have almost completed 75 to 80% of the syllabus. There are very few chapters left. Today we will be dealing with audit and fiscal laws. Till now we have seen the chapters through charts, but these chapters they are a bit difficult to go through charts. So what we are doing is, in this video I am using compiler which is compiled by C.A. Ravi Agarwal sir. Okay, along with this compiler we will also be dealing with past 4 attempts RTPs, May 18, November 18 and May 19 RTPs, right? Okay, starting with audit and fiscal laws. Now what is fiscal laws here? In this chapter there are mainly Income Tax Act 1961 and some questions related to GST. GST questions are very important as it is recent updates, right? So we will deal in questions here. These are all the questions taken from ICAI study material and also various illustrations. Now discuss applicability of section 44 AD in the following cases. He is asking about the applicability of 44 AD. If you remember, this is in PGBP. DEP Private Limited has total turnover of 125 lakhs for the financial year 18-19. Okay, the turnover is 125 lakhs. Whether 44 AD is applicable or not, we will see the answer. Section 44 AD is not applicable to company SSC. Hence, limit of 2 crores is not applicable to DB Private Limited. And it has to conduct audit of books of accounts under section 44 AB if turnover exceeds 1 crore. See, to audit the books of accounts, it is 1 crore limit, right? It is only 125 lakhs in the question given here. So, it is not applicable. Second one, ABC and Company, it is a partnership firm having turnover of 165 lakhs. Now the answer is section 44 AD is applicable to partnership firm. Thus ABC and Co can declare the minimum profit at the 8% of turnover, and its turnover during 18-19 does not exceed 2 crores. If the firm do not opt for presumptive income scheme under 44 AD, it has to get books of accounts audited under section 44 AB of the Act. See, if you remember, 44 AD is about presumptive income. Now here the partnership company, what is the turnover? It is 165 lakhs, which is less than 1 crore. Sorry, which is less than 2 crores, right? So 44 AD is applicable to partnership firm and it can declare profit at 8% of turnover. Mr. Anand Khezare, commission agent, has commission receipts of 137 lakhs. Can a commission agent declare his income under 44 AD? No, because for commission income 44 AD is not applicable. We will see here. 44 AD is applicable to individual, but is not applicable to commission income. So 44 AD he cannot apply. However, if income exceeds 1 crore, 44 AB he can audit the books of accounts. He has to audit the books of accounts. So 1 crore is for 44 AB, 2 crores is for 44 AD. You should remember this. Next one is also same question. Commission income 44 AB and AD. Now, second question. Concession Limited is engaged in the business of manufacturing of threads. The company recorded turnover of 1.13 crores before adjusting the following. See, these are the various adjustments. Before adjusting, the turnover is 1.13 crores. What is your requirement? You are required to ascertain the effective turnover to be considered for the prescribed limit of tax under relevant act. You have to find the effective turnover. That means for 1.13 crores, you have to deduct something or add something or ignore something. You have to see which are those. Now you have to write the provision first. For 44 AB, carrying on business if total sales, turnover or gross receipts in business exceed 1 crore, and to person carrying on profession if gross receipts exceed 50 lakhs in any previous year. However, the term turnover, sales or gross receipts are not defined under this act. Some of the points for merit consideration. These are the consideration. First, remember the various items given. discount allowed in the sales invoice, cash discount, trade discount, commission on sales, sales return, sale of investment. Okay, first one, discount allowed in the sales invoice. In the sales invoice only you have given the discount. That means that discount allowed is reducing your sales amount, so it can be deducted from the turnover. So what you have to do, from 1.13 crores you can deduct 8,20,000. Next one, cash discount. Cash discount is related to finance. Okay, it is allowed in cash or memo sales, sales invoice. It is a nature of financing charge, not related to turnover. Hence it should be going to P&L account. It should not be deducted from the turnover, so you should not deduct this. Third one, trade discount, 2,90,000. Trade discount is normally, it can be allowed. When it can be allowed? If may exceed a particular quantity. If you purchase from a particular quantity, that sales discount can be allowed. This is known as trade discount. Hence, this can be deducted. Commission on sales. This point is very important. Commission on sales. Special rebate allowed to customer can be deducted from sale if it is the nature of trade discount. If it is the nature of commission on sale, the same cannot be deducted. So commission on sales cannot be deducted. Next one, sales returns. Sales returns, can you deduct? Yes, you can deduct. However, this is financial year 18-19. Sales returns are related to goods sold in 16-17. Can you deduct in this year? Yes, you can deduct. Whatever year it is, you can deduct the sales return from the turnover. So you can deduct 1,60,000. Sale of investment. You are selling some investment. You are getting some money. That is not related to turnover at all. That is related to P&L account. So here it won't come. See, in this way you have to present. Recorded turnover given 1.13 crores. From that less discount allowed in sales invoice, trade discount, sales returns, which gives your effective turnover. Conclusion, the effective turnover is 1,30,000, which is over and above the prescribed limit of 1 crore. Thus, the provisions related to tax audit are applicable to the company and is liable for tax audit. In this way, you have to write the answer. Next question. B Private Limited is engaged in the business of providing training programs. Annual turnover is 69 crores. It is subject to tax audit. The company applied for GST registration for 2 new locations, for which registration certificates have not yet been received. For 2 new locations, they have applied for GST registration. However, the certificates are not yet received. However, the registration number is available on the portal. Registration number certificate is not obtained, but registration number is available on GST portal of relevant authority, which can be verified by checking the details of the company. In this case, what should be the audit procedures to verify the registration number? If you have a certificate of GST registration, no problem. But in this case, the GST certificate is not yet obtained. However, in the GST website or the portal, it is available. In this case, how will you verify? How will you do the audit procedures to verify the registration number? Now the answer is like this. The tax auditor should verify the registration number for the locations for which registration certificates have not been received from online portal of the relevant authority. Should verify. The auditor also ensure that the details furnished while checking the registration number pertains to the company only. See, in the GST portal, there will be details of the company. You should match those details with the company actual details. If the company has filed any returns for these locations, the auditor should inquire for the same from the management and should check those returns to verify the correctness of the registration numbers. The company would have filed some returns, right? You should ask the management and should obtain the returns. You should check the correctness of the registration numbers. In addition, the auditor should also obtain specific representation from the management, right? This is regarding the audit procedures for verification of registration number not yet obtained from the GST authorities. While writing the audit program for tax audit in respect of A Limited, you wish to include possible instances of capital receipt if not created to P&L account, which needs to be reported under 16E of Form 3CD. See, before going to this question, there are 3 forms, 3CA, 3CB and 3CD. What are those? Form 3CA is applicable for all the SSCs who are required to be get audited under any other laws except Income Tax Act 1961. That means for a company, if it is required to be audited under Companies Act 2013, that company should submit Form 3CA. Form 3CB is applicable for SSCs who are not required to get audited under any other laws except tax laws. For example, partnership company, partnership firm, it is not required to get audited under any other law. So it should submit Form 3CB. 3CD is a common form. Irrespective of your submitting 3CA or 3CB, you should submit all the details in 3CD. 3CD contains various clauses. Okay, some 41 clauses it will contain. No need to remember all the clause numbers. Just go through the questions and write the answer. That's it. So here the question is, while writing the audit report for tax audit in respect of A Limited, you wish to include possible instances of capital receipt if not credited to P&L account. Capital receipt is not credited to P&L account, which needs to be reported under 16E of Form 3CD. Please elucidate possible circumstances or instances. Now, the following is an illustrative list of capital receipts which, if not credited to P&L account, are to be stated under 16E of Form 3CD. What are the cases? Capital subsidy received from government, which are the nature of promoter's contribution. Okay, promoter contribution, which are not credited to P&L account, you should disclose in Form 3CD. Next one. Government grant in related to specific fixed asset. For a specific asset, you have given government grant and you have deducted that grant amount from the capital asset. Then you should disclose compensation for surrendering certain rights. You are surrendering certain rights and you are receiving compensation. Profit on sale of fixed assets or investments to the extent not credited to P&L account. These 4 points you should disclose in clause 16 of 3CD form. Right? Next one. Ploy Limited engaged in the leasing of goods carriage. Appointed you as the tax auditor for the 1819. These following transactions. Payment of 6 invoices of 5,000 rupees, each made in cash to X on 4th July 2018. See, this is related to Income Tax Act 1961, Section 40A3. 40A3, if you remember, you have studied in PGBP chapter. What is the provision there? 40A3 said, right, if the SSC incurs any expenses in respect of which payment or aggregate of payments made to a person in a day, this is very important, made to a person in a day, otherwise than by account payee check or bank or account payee draft which exceeds 10,000 rupees. See, whenever you are paying, you should pay in account payee check or bank account or draft to a person in a day. It should not exceed 10,000 rupees. That means up to 10,000 you can pay in cash also to a person in a day. If it is exceeding, the amount is disallowed if paid in cash. However, in the case of payment made for plying of goods carriage, plying, hiring or leasing goods carriage, 10,000 will be substituted by the amount 35,000. Up to 35,000 you can make in cash also. Now, what is the first one? Payment of 6 invoices of 5,000, each made in cash to Mr. X on 4th July. So on one date, 4th July, to one person, Mr. X, how much you are paying? 6 into 5,000, 30,000. The limit is 35,000. So can it pay? Yes, you can pay. No disallowance under section 48(3). It is permitted. Payment of 2 invoices of 18,000 each, made in cash to Mr. Y on 5th July, 6th July respectively. That means The provision is saying one person 1 day, but here you are paying on 2 days, 18,000. So is it allowed? Yes, it is allowed. The total amount may be 36,000, 18,000 into 2, but you are paying on 2 days, so it is allowed. No disallowance. Third one, payment of 40,000 made in cash to Mr. Z on 7th July. See, on 7th July, one date, one person, you have made payment in cash of 40,000, which is exceeding 35,000. Hence, you are attracting disallowance under section 40A3. Then what will happen? The whole amount of 40,000 will be disallowed. It is not 40 minus 35. The whole amount of 40,000 will be disallowed. This is the answer. See, there is a rule 6DD, right, which contains some exemptions. Suppose you are paying to agricultural farmers, okay, where there are no banking facilities available, there are some deductions, right, exemptions available. No, next one. See, whenever you are paying more than 35,000, here 40,000 you have paid, no? The details of such amount needs to be furnished under clause 21 of form 3CD. The details of the amount should be submitted in form 3CD. Next one. Company has received an advance for capital asset, and the same is outstanding for 5 years. What is your responsibility? When advance has been received, has been outstanding for a considerable period of time, there is no requirement to report unless it is forfeited by an act of an SSC. Forfeiture means cancelling off. Unless it is forfeited, there is no requirement to report. Next one. If an SSC has forfeited the amount as per right of agreement, then can it become income? If the SSC has forfeited the amount with the right to forfeit, and in case there is no action by the other party, the amount so forfeited may become income under clause 9, and the income tax in the tax auditor should report such forfeited amount with appropriate note under clause 29A. If you have forfeited the amount and the other party has not taken any action, then you can consider this as income, and you should also report in clause 29A. Third one, if an SSC has not forfeited the amount, even though the conditions are forfeited is applicable as per contractual terms, will it become income under 56(2)? See, now you have not forfeited, however there are some conditions, the conditions are not fulfilled, so I have to forfeit, but you have not forfeited, then will it become income? If the SSC contends that the amount has not been forfeited, the tax auditor needs to look at all the facts of the case and obtain a management representation that even though the contract permits forfeiture on some conditions, and even though the conditions have occurred, the SSC has not yet forfeited the advance and sums received. What you should do in the case? You have to obtain management representation, and you have to understand the situation. You have to ask them, why are you not forfeiting the amount? Even though there are some conditions, the conditions have occurred, so actually you have to forfeit the amount. But why are you not forfeiting it? You have to obtain the representation. Next one, Mr. X. Mr. X, an article training in JSA Associates, is assigned to GST audit assignment of Flex Industries. He is confused with the applicability of GST audit and Flex Industries. Is the company is spreading across India. See, this is a question related to GST. What is the answer? See, GST is applicable to pan-India basis, not one state. So if the pan-India amount exceeds certain limit, then GST is applicable. GST audit will be applicable on Flex Industries. The total turnover calculation for the assessment of applicability of GST audit must be done on a pan India basis, not for one state or one state. See, if there are 4 different states, in 4 states the total combined turnover is more than 2 crores, then GST audit is applicable. Turnover under the pan India level is more than 2 crores. All business entities registered as GST for the pan will be liable for GST audit for the financial year. This is the question. The same question. Here the question is somewhat different. Turnover of 55 lakhs, 45 lakhs, 50 lakhs for the quarter 2, 3, 4 respectively. Right? So in the whole year you have to calculate the amount and write the answer. If it is more than 2 crores, then GST audit is applicable. Here also same question. Aggregate turnover of all branches exceed 2 crores. However, Delhi branch only 75 lakhs. What is the case? We have to see on pan India basis. If it is more than 2 crores, then GST audit will be applicable for all such branches. Twelfth question. Mr. Anuj, the management asked Mr. Anuj for GST audit along with July and August. He is a accountable profession. He has been appointed as GST auditor. Management contention is not correct, as return filing and preparation of annual returns and their filing was the responsibility of management. See, in this question, the auditor is asked by the management to file the returns and prepare the annual returns also. Whose responsibility is preparation of annual returns? It is the management responsibility. He may be auditor, he will audit. That is known as tax audit. But preparation of annual returns is the responsibility of management. GST auditor's prime responsibility on the engagement is limited to GST audit. Audit of reconciliation statement between books of accounts via GST returns prepared by the company, and the GST auditor is not responsible for preparation of such statements. That's the answer. Next one. Please specify which of the following supplies would form part of reporting under turnover for the period April 17 to June 17. Goods were manufactured and cleared from factory on 1/6/17 on sale or approval basis. The goods were not approved by the recipient and returned back on 25/12/17. See, there is a limit of 6 months. From 1/6/17 you have to check 6 months. It will end on 1/12/2017. However, you have received on 25/12/2017. Return the goods. So what is the provision applicable? What is the answer you have to write? Since the goods were not approved and returned after the stipulated period of 6 months, the value of the said supplies would not be included in turnover. However, as per the second provision of the GST Act, since the goods were returned after 6 months from appointed date, GST would be payable for the tax period December 2017. Though the transaction originated in the period April to June, the turnover will not be reflected under this serial number. However, one may reflect such adjustment under Part 2, serial number 5. Adjustments in turnover due to reasons not listed above as addition. See, the 6 months has elapsed. So, in the turnover, this amount should not be included. That is the answer you have to write. Goods were manufactured and cleared from factory located in Bangalore on 34/17. The goods were cleared to its showroom located in Hyderabad and eventually being sold from there on 38/17. The audit under GST law will be conducted for Bangalore GSTN. See, this is a branch transfer. Here you are transferring from one branch to another branch. From Bangalore you have transferred to Hyderabad. The question is related to GST law for Bangalore. For Bangalore there is nothing. Okay, it is just a branch transfer. So for Bangalore there is no adjustment required. That is the answer. Services were provided during the period June 2017. The services completed on 26/17, but invoice for the service was raised on 1/8/17. Okay, invoice is raised on 1/8. So what should we do now? Since the invoice was raised after a period of 30 days, service tax is liable to be paid for the period ending June 2017. Since the transaction is liable to service tax, it is not liable to GST. Within 30 days, you have to raise the invoice. Okay, since that said transaction is liable to service tax, it is not liable to GST. Now the invoice is raised in GST regime. See, when is the GST applicable? 1/7/2017. On that date, GST become applicable. But the services were provided on June month. Invoice is raised in GST regime, but the services was provided in service tax era. So for this, GST is not applicable. Therefore, the said value of invoice must be deducted from the period of April 17 to June 17. Understood? So the important point here is, what is the date of providing the service? Invoice may be raised in GST era, but service is provided in service tax era before 1/7/2017. That is the question. Next is also same one, next point also. Next one. PQR Limited has exported goods to company located in USA. The value of goods is $1 lakh. We have exported to USA. The value of goods is $1 lakh. The exchange rate on the date of filing shipping bill is these rates. CBC notified rate is 65 rupees. RBI reference rate is 68 rupees per dollar. At the time of receiving money, the bank exchange the foreign currency at 70 rupees. There are 3 rates given here. For the purpose of GST returns, CBAC will be the main one. So you have to disclose the amount as per CBAC. For the accounting records, it is RBI reference rate, which is 68 rupees. For the actual period, it is 70 rupees when you are receiving money. The difference between these two will be your profit that you will recognize as foreign exchange gains. You will see the answer now. For GST returns, the exchange rate would be 65, which is CBSE notified rate. And you should record the exports value at 68 lakhs. The difference between 65 and 68, which is 3 into $1 lakh, $3 lakh, would have to be reduced from the annual turnover as per the financials to arrive at the revenue as per GSTR 9. Okay, annual returns, normally annual turnover is 68 lakhs as per RBI rate, but you have to deduct 3 lakhs to arrive at the GSTR 9. Now this 2 lakhs difference between 70 and 68 will be forex gain, would be credited to P&L account, which needs to be reduced from the annual turnover as per the financials to arrive at the revenue as per GSTR 9. Right? Same thing. So this next question is also same, 65, 68, 66. Here you will be getting loss. Minus 2 lakhs will be debited to the P&L account as forex loss, which again needs to be added from the annual turnover as per the financials to arrive at the revenue as per GSTR 9. Okay, you have to arrive at the GSTR 9. That is the final thing. For that you have to make these adjustments. Please state which of the following are liable to reverse charge. GTA issued a consignment. The consignment notes charge GST on 12% basis. The consignor has booked the GTA. See, the consignor is paying it 12%. The recipient has paid the freight to GTA on to collect basis. Would this turnover be mentioned in table 7D? The consignment note contains GST at 12%. So reverse charge does not attract. If we are paying it 12%, reverse charge won't be attracted. So the transaction should not be recorded in 7D table. Next one. GTA issued a consignment note. The consignment note does not charge GST. The consignor has booked the GTA. The recipient has paid the freight on to collect basis. Since the consignment note has not charged GST at 12%, reverse charge will be applicable. So it should be entered in table 7D. GST should be paid on reverse charge basis. Advocate has provided legal services to and charge GST of 18 rupees on his invoice of rupees 100. Advocate has deducted GST. The advocate's client has paid 118 to the advocate. The advocate has remitted 18 to government and is of opinion that the aforesaid transaction should not be registered in table 7D. See, if you remember the services provided by advocate, reverse charge will be applicable. Here the advocate himself has paid GST, but that does not mean that reverse charge won't be applicable. Supplies by registered person whose supplies are liable for reverse charge are to be inserted in table 7D. Legal services would be provided by the advocate to his client are liable for reverse charge. Okay? GST wrongly collected and paid by the advocate under forward charge will not change the fact that aforesaid service is liable to reverse charge and hence merits insertion in table 7D. This is the answer. The input tax credit as booked on the GST receivable ledger for the month of August 17. Input tax credit on purchase of inputs claimed in GSTR 3B of August 17, 3 lakhs. ITC on purchase of inputs 1 lakh 50. ITC on purchase of inputs of May 2018 2 lakhs. These are the various dates. You are doing on August 17. Okay, receivable ledger of August 17. Now what is the answer? The reporting of the following transactions shall be made in this column. ITC on purchase of inputs claimed in GSTR 3B of May 18, 2 lakhs. Okay, you are doing on 17, so you have to write the May 18 GSTR 3B separately, which is 2 lakhs. The ITC as booked in the purchase account is as follows. ITC on purchase of raw materials 1 lakh 50, purchase value 20 lakhs. Consumables ITC 60,000, purchase value 4 lakhs. Food items for staff ITC claim is 12,000, purchase value 1 lakh 20. ITC availed by registered person from the purchase account 2 lakh 22,000. So what is the value of purchases totally? 20 lakhs plus 4 lakhs plus 1 lakh 20, 25 lakh 20,000. This is the value of purchases. What is the total ITC? 1 lakh 50 plus 60 plus 12,000, which is given here 2 lakh 22,000. What is the available ITC which can be claimed? Eligible ITC? Only these two, because this is for food items of staff which you cannot claim GST, sorry, ITC. So only 2 lakh 10,000 will be the amount of eligible ITC. That is the answer. Mr. A engaged in business as sole proprietor presented the following information. Turnover is 124 lakhs. Goods returned 20 lakhs not included. You have to deduct it. Cash discount. This is financing charge as we discussed, so you should not deduct. Special rebate in the form of trade discount. Yes, you can allow 5 lakhs. So what is the answer here? 124 lakhs minus 20 lakhs minus 5 lakhs. That will be around 114 lakhs. Right? You will see the answer. You have to write the points. One 124 lakhs minus 20 lakhs, which will be 104 lakhs, right? 104 minus 5 lakhs, which will be 99 lakhs. $99 lakhs is the answer here. Okay, as the limit of tax audit is 1 crore, he would not be required to get his accounts audited under section 44AB. This is the answer. Finally, you have to write. So same question. Discount allowed, cash discount, price of goods returned related to earlier years, sale proceeds of fixed assets. You have to write the answer. Fixed assets is not related to turnover, so you should not deduct the amount. Write a short note on method of accounting in form number 3CD of tax audit. Clause 13 of form 3CD of tax audit requires that to state method of accounting employed in the previous year. It also requires if there is any change and if there is any effect on P&L account, profit or loss. And what more is required here? Section 145 provides that method of accounting should be either cash or mercantile basis. Hybrid system is not permitted. Hybrid accounting you cannot make, right? No. ABC proprietary concern turnover of above 1.03 crores. The management explained that it undertakes different job work orders from various customers. The raw materials required for each job are dissimilar. It purchases raw materials as per requirements of each customer, and there is hardly any balance of raw materials except WIP because of variety of complexity of materials. It is impossible to maintain a stock register. Give your comments. See what the company is saying is proprietary concern. It is purchasing various raw materials from different vendors. There is no stock of raw materials left, so it is very hard, to check the balance of raw materials. So it is impossible to maintain a stock register. What is your comments as an auditor? Non-maintenance of stock register. The explanation of entity for the use of variety of raw materials for different jobs may be valid, but the auditor needs to verify the specified job orders received in the different raw materials purchased for each job separately. The use of different papers may be examined. If possible, the auditor may also inquire with the similar printers in the locality to ensure the prevailing custom. What are the other people in the same industry doing? At the same time, he has to report and certify under clause 35B and clause 11B of form 3CD along with rule 6G2 of the Income Tax Act 1961 about the details of stock and accounts. Okay, he must verify the closing stock of raw material WIP and finished goods of the concern at least on the date of its balance sheet. In case said details are not promptly maintained, he has to specifically mention the same with reasons for non-maintenance of stock register. Okay, you should check the reasons why it is not being maintained. You should check the custom in the industry. What are the other players doing? You should check as much as possible as on the balance sheet date at least. These are the various processes to be followed by the auditor. This is asked in May 20 RTP, so it is very important. Next question. A cooperative society having receipts above 1 crore gets its account audited by the person eligible to do audit under Cooperative Societies Act 1912, who is not a chartered accountant. State with reasons whether such audit report can be furnished as a tax audit report under section 44AB. See, as per section 44AB, accountant means a chartered accountant with the meaning contained in Chartered Accountants Act 1949. But here, it is a cooperative society. As per Cooperative Societies Act, any member can audit. It is not as per tax laws, but as per 44AB, when you are doing the audit, that person should be only a chartered accountant. Other than chartered accountant, he is not eligible to carry out 44AB audit. This is the answer you have to write. Next question. Draft an audit program for conducting the audit of public trust registered under section 12A. Public trust, as per section 12A, what is the audit program you will be drafting? Routine checking you should conduct in the following manner. Check the books of accounts and other records. Watch the transactions. Different transaction, whether it is authorized properly, delegated authority, it is permitted by law. Incomes should be based on the accounting system followed by the trust. All expenses and outgoing have been recorded on the basis of system of accounting followed by trust. Amounts shown as applied towards the object of the trust are covered by the objects of the trust. Different points you have to watch the transactions. Obtain trial balance on the closing date, duly certified by the trustee. Obtain balance sheet and P&L account of the trust, authenticated by trustees, and check the same with the trial balance with which they should agree. These are the various points. State whether a tax audit report can be revised, and if so, state the circumstances. Very, very important question. Whether tax audit report can be revised? Normally no, but in special circumstances you can do that. Revision of a tax audit report. Normally, the report of tax audit cannot be revised later. However, when the accounts are revised in the following circumstances, the auditor may have to revise. When the accounts itself are revised, tax audit report can also be revised. What are the various situations? Revision of accounts of company after its adoption in the AGM. In the AGM, the books have been adopted. After the adoption, there is some revision. Change in law with retrospective effect, or change in interpretation of law. For example, CBDT circulars, notification, judgments of Supreme Court, etc. The tax auditor should state in the revised report clearly the reasons for such revision. This is a very important question. Okay, normally you should not revise, but in the three circumstances you can revise. Those three you have to write, and write the reasons along with the report. Briefly discuss provisions given under section 66 regarding special audit required under GST Act. Special audit. Availing services for experts in old age practice. Okay, expert services you are availing from many years. These experts have done service to the process of delivering justice. One such facility extended by the Act is section 66, where an officer not below the rank of assistant commissioner, duly approved, may avail the services of CA or cost accountant to conduct a detailed examination of specific areas of operations of a registered person. Okay, here the expert means the chartered accountant, cost accountant. He will be appointed to check some specific items. Value has not been correctly declared, or credit availed is not within the normal limits. You have to check those normally. Okay, this is all theory part. What is the time limit? The chartered accountant, cost accountant so appointed shall submit the audit report, mention the specified particulars within a period of 90 days to the assistant commissioner in accordance with provision of rule 1022 form GST ADT 04. Extension. In the event of an application to assistant commissioner by CA or cost accountant seeking an extension for 90 days, it can be further extended along with reasons. You have to write sufficient reasons. So 90 plus 90 total 180. ABC Limited is a printing company with aggregate turnover exceeding 2 crores. XYZ Associates CA, which has been appointed for GST audit of ABC. On 23rd July, ABC Limited has not filed its GSTR 3B for the month of July. Its GSTR 1 return is also not complied. What should Mr. Sandhu advise the client? The auditor should advise the company to file all GSTR 3B, GSTR annual returns before conducting GST audit. Auditor needs to have comprehensive picture of understanding the backup of monthly returns, understanding of eligibility of input tax credit ITC, understanding of taxability of outward supplies and transactions covered under reverse charge mechanism. You should advise the client to file all the returns, GSTR 3B, 1 annual returns, etc. before conducting audit. You have to obtain understanding of all these following items. Next one. Aggregate turnover 2 crores. They have been appointed. Same GSTR 3B is not filed. What will you do? It is asked in May 20 RTP, which is very important. Now by this we have completed the question and answers part. There are some multiple choice questions from ICI material. You can solve that on your own, okay? It is like a homework to you. Now we will go with RTP questions. This is November 18 RTP. You are doing the tax audit of a limited company. After submission of tax audit report, management notices there are apparent mistake of law, and due to this opinion, they revised the final accounts. As a tax auditor, company seeks your opinion whether tax audit can be revised or not. We have seen the question. Tax audit normally cannot be revised, but under these three circumstances, it can be revised. What are the circumstances? When the books of accounts have been revised after the adoption in AGM, or if there is any change in law, retrospective effect, or if there is any interpretation of law, change in interpretation of law. This is the answer. Next one. XYZ Limited is looking for an auditor for getting its account audited as per GST. Being an expert in indirect tax, XYZ Limited is seeking your advice on types of audit to be envisaged as per GST law. Explain. The question is about types of audit under GST law. What are the various types of law audit? Types of audit under GST law. See, GST audit is for two types. Audit by GST by tax authorities, which is general audit and special audit. Next is audit by professionals, which is to file returns plus audited accounts plus reconciliation statements. I have to write some points about this all audits. Audit of accounts. Every registered person must get his accounts audited by CA or cost accountant if his aggregate turnover during financial year exceeds 2 crores. Okay. Reconciliation statement. Normal points you can write. Audit under section 65, that is tax authorities, must be conducted by CA or cost accountant nominated by commissioner. Section 66, this is about the professional service. You are like an expert here. We have seen this question earlier, right? Availing the service of expert is an old age practice. Okay, when value has not been correctly declared or credit availed is not within the normal limits. This is as per types of GST audit, which is the question conducted November 18 RTP. Next we will go to May 19 RTP. See, if you remember, we have seen the question. Same question. Goods were manufactured in Clearfield factory on 1617 on sale or approval basis. The goods were not approved by the recipient and returned back on 25/12/17. Within 6 months, you have not received the goods. That is the answer, right? Branch transfer, Bangalore to Hyderabad. So Bangalore books, there is no adjustment required. Next one. I have provided services from 1617 3617. The bill is raised on 3770. So GST became applicable on 1st July 2017. However, in this case, the services provided are in the service tax regime. So for this transaction, service tax is applicable, but GST is not applicable. That is the answer. Now we will go to last November 19 RTP. You are doing tax audit of private limited company for the financial year 31st March 2019. During audit, you notice that the company is not regular in deposit of VAT or GST, and there remains pendency every year. So the company is not regularly depositing the amount. The details are as follows. GST payable on 31st March 18, 200 lakhs, out of which 100 lakhs paid on 15/9/18 and 50 lakhs on 33/19 and balance of 50 lakhs paid on 16/9/19. Okay. GST payable on current financial year was 100 lakhs, out of which 40 lakhs was paid on 25/18 and balance of 60 lakhs remained unpaid. The date of tax audit report and due care of return was 30 September. As a tax auditor, how or where the transaction will be reflected? This is an important question. This is a special type of question we have not seen till now. Reporting in tax audit report. Any amount of GST or tax payable on last day of previous year, that is opening balance, as well as on the last day of the current year, that is the closing balance, has to be reported in tax audit report under clause 26A and 26B. Clause 26A dealt GST or VAT payable on the pre-existed on the first day of the previous year, but was not allowed in the assessment of any preceding previous years and was either paid or and not paid during the previous years. The details will be as follows. You have to write this format, okay? Serial number, section, nature of liability, opening outstanding, balance not allowed in previous year, amount set off in the current year, amount written back, amount unpaid. Okay. Liability incurred during the previous year. In the previous year, what is the liability? You have to write in this format. By this, we have completed all the major questions in the chapter of fiscal laws, that is Income Tax Act and GST Act. There are many other questions. You can go through the past exam questions and past RTPs and MTPs. Okay, you cannot spend much more time on this chapter. Majorly, you can expect 1 or 2 questions. Okay, there are various points, various clauses. We did not remember all of them. Just go through the previous questions and the study material questions. It will take maximum 45 to 50 minutes. That's it. Thank you, guys.